Navarro on the run. Navarro's going to keep it. Navarro for 6. Touchdown, Bobcat.
I feel I had a hard time staying in my own lane.
Oh my goodness! Red Murdoch, pick 6.
Harvath inside the 30 to 20. Blake Harvath will score.
And Mendoza takes a big hit. He never saw it coming. Trey White got in there.
There's his man, Rucker. And nobody's going to catch him. Goodbye.
Intercepted.
Tyree Skipper. Touchdown.
Back. Telly again, why not? A step forward and make it 2 for Telly.
Quarterback keeper. Showing off the speed. Steps on the gas. Untouched.
The G5 Hive. All G5, all the time.
Welcome to the G5 Hive, where we bring you the G6 college football coverage you love each and every week. I'm Luke, joined by my co-host, Justice. If you're watching us on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe button. If you're watching us on X, please give us a follow, a like, and a retweet. And if you're listening to us in podcast form, please rate and review. Streamer got it figured out with X. We're on there. I've already retweeted it out there. Tonight, we will be doing our last dance for the 2026 G5 Shuffle with the Sun Belt Conference. Justice will provide you with the players that are coming and going, while I will tackle coaching staffs. What staffs are new? Where do they come from? Who's coming back? As always, Justice, I sit down when I come down here in my basement to record, especially during this series. I come with my dancing shoes ready to go. We have 13 teams. Yes, 13. We got 6 in the West. We've got 7 in the East. But before we start dancing and before we get to the news and notes, Justice took part in the Sun Belt Conference Championship basketball for the men's and women's, covering ODU. Tell us a little bit about that.
It was a fun experience. Hadn't not been to the Sun Belt Conference tournament. The ODU men. I went down last Monday. We drove down. It's a long drive. It wasn't too bad. Like Monday didn't feel too bad. I think we left around 5 a.m. and I feel like we got there around like 6 p.m. ish, somewhere around there. Went to the men practice that night. Had a shoot around at the Pensacola Bay Center, so got to go to that. Got to attend walkthrough and film session. So that was a cool experience. We then got to see them play Tuesday night and then again on Wednesday. They won the first game Tuesday, lost on Wednesday to Georgia Southern, who made an incredible run all the way to the championship game where they lost tonight against Troy. And then Thursday kind of had the day off, if you will. Didn't really have to do anything in terms of helping the ODU guys out in terms of covering basketball because neither team played. The women didn't start their journey. I'll take that back. We did. We went to the women's practice on Thursday night at Pensacola, Pensacola State Junior College. Went to their practice that night. The women played Friday afternoon, went to their walkthrough and film session on Friday morning. But they lost on Friday afternoon. So we drove back Saturday, and it was a long day. It was a really long day. We left probably around 7:15 in the morning from Pensacola. And then a multitude of things got us, right? So Pensacola's in the central time zone. So we went back to the Eastern, so we lost an hour there. They didn't officially drop me off at my house till 3 a.m., but it was really 2 a.m. because of the clocks changing. So we got hit with the time zone hour. We got hit with the spring forward hour. It was long, man. We got stuck on 95 for like 2.5 hours, like not moving. There was a bus that had overturned on 95 in North Carolina. And so I think that I read the article. I think there's 30 or 40 people on the bus. 2 people got airlifted out via helicopter. So hope they're okay. But yeah,
Was that like a travel, like,
yeah, like
anybody,
like,
or like not like a school bus or anything?
no, it wasn't a school bus. It was like a vacation
Charter.
bus. Yeah, charter bus, vacation bus. They were coming back from Myrtle Beach. I don't know where they were headed, but they were on their way home from Myrtle Beach. Lost a tire and then flipped. So yeah, it was a long day. It was a long day. I don't think I got out of bed till 11:30 on Sunday. So
And you talk about daylight savings time, and let me tell you, something that grinds my gears is daylight savings time, because I am a dad of an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old, and I knew daylight savings time was coming up. I knew it. I was prepared for it. Usually I set my clocks back that night. Didn't do it. Woke up. I'm like, all right, it's like 8:30. Like, okay, not too bad. Look at my phone, but it says 9:30. I'm like, what is going on? So I turn my phone off, turn it back on. It still says 9:30. I'm like, oh, crap. It's daylight savings time, and we lose an hour. And, like, today has been just a day of days as a parent. You just everything that could go wrong has gone wrong. I was talking to Justice. I was like, I'm not getting kids dinner until like 8:30 Central Time, because kids have taken naps. Like, well, this bedtime sucks. I've got, it's been a day. If you're a parent, you get it. But you guys aren't here to hear about the Sun Belt Conference, championships and basketball tournament. You're not here to listen to Luke whine about daylight savings time. You're here for G6 college football. Justice, what does the Swarm need to know? Our news and notes.
Not too much this week. We talked about a couple weeks ago Thomas Hammock going to the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks owe Northern Illinois $1.5 million for buyout of his contract. Staying with the MAC, Akron received a waiver from the NCAA that allows the football program to be eligible for postseason in 2026. They were ineligible in 2025 due to the program's APR score. And then the last piece of news fits really well with our main topic tonight in the Sun Belt Conference. And, Luke told you, covering 13 teams, 7 in the East, 6 in the West. And you might be like, well, why is it weird? Why is it uneven? Well, for one thing, Texas State left Sun Belt and went to the Pac-12. And then Louisiana Tech is accepted an invite to the Sun Belt. However, Conference USA does not want to let them go. And so it's still kind of in flux. To kind of further complicate the matter, which was no doubt done on purpose, Conference USA released their football schedule that included Louisiana Tech. And that was just a power move I'm assuming, to be able to try and claim more damages in terms of financial damages. It makes so much sense just to let them go, because Conference USA is at an odd number of teams with Louisiana Tech. Sun Belt's at an odd number of teams without Louisiana Tech. And it would just make things from a scheduling perspective so much easier. But nonetheless, Conference USA is not going to go down without a fight. So to kind of catch folks up to speed, Louisiana Tech's offer last July to Conference USA was to pay $480,000 or a membership fee, give up its Conference USA distribution for 25 and 26, and buy back its TV rights. Conference USA's counter in August was give me $5.5 million. So a big difference there between the two sides. Louisiana Tech over the past week filed a lawsuit after Conference USA issued that schedule that included Louisiana Tech. And I should note, Conference USA did the same exact thing in terms of the schedule when Old Dominion, Marshall, and Southern Miss told them they were leaving. They did the same exact thing, and there was a lawsuit between those three schools and Conference USA, and ultimately it got settled. But anyway, Louisiana Tech after the in that lawsuit, they asked for a temporary restraining order. A judge denied that temporary restraining order by Louisiana Tech, but it did grant a request for a hearing by Conference USA, which is scheduled for March 19th. So I'm assuming at that point there's going to be some mediation and some financial agreement. It's really all it's about, in my opinion. At the end of the day, I expect Louisiana Tech will be a Sun Belt member in 26. It's just a matter of how much they're going to have to pay. And so we should get resolution on that very soon. But nonetheless, we're not covering Louisiana Tech tonight just because it's not official. We did cover Louisiana Tech when we did Conference USA.
I feel like there is it's an amazing representation of people who are into football are also into wrestling, professional wrestling. I feel like, especially like fantasy football. I feel like there's some sort of correlation. I don't know what it is, but this just reminds me of the Montreal Screwjob. You got Bret Hart. He's going to go to WCW, but he's got the title. But Vince McMahon does it, hey, he wants to drop it, but then they pull a fast one. Shawn Michaels gets a quick pin, even though he kicked out at 2, and Shawn Michaels gets the title, and like just Vince was scared. Like this just kind of reminds me of the Montreal Screwjob, where you got Vince McMahon and Bret Hart Bret Hart's leaving. He's already got a contract with WCW, but you can't have him leave with a title. So this is what, I don't know. I look at this, and that's what I think of. Montreal Screwjob right here, Louisiana Tech. All right. Well, I think it's time that we get into the coaching changes, the transfer portal of the Sun Belt Conference, and we're going to start with the Appalachian State Mountaineers, who were 5-8 last season. Same wins as last year, but 2 more losses. You're going to talk about, how is that? Well, you got the bowl game, and then they lost a game due to the hurricane against Liberty 2 years ago. So they're not really, adding up. Head coach Dow Loggins comes back for a second season. There was no OC on the team roster last year, so we assumed it was Loggins calling everything. They bring in an OC, Mike Anthony, for his first season. But will he actually be calling plays? This is something when we do our Worker Bee series where I'll be curious to dig in and find out about this, because Mike Anthony has never been an OC. He's been an assistant quarterback coach, assistant wide receivers, senior offensive analyst, a lot of offensive analyst jobs. So let's run through Mike Anthony. 2026 South Carolina assistant quarterback coach. 2025 TCU assistant quarterbacks coach. 2024 TCU assistant wide receivers coach. 2003 TCU senior offensive analyst. He was quality control for the offense for Arkansas in 2020 through 2022. Florida State in 2019 senior offensive analyst. Houston in 2018 offensive analyst. 2017 FAU offensive analyst. 2015 and 16 Baylor offensive analyst. The assistant director of football operations and an offensive analyst at Baylor in 2014, assistant quality control for the offense of Baylor in 2013, and then 2008 to 2012, Baylor student assistant on the offensive side. So I would assume that Loggins is also still going to call the plays, but maybe you're kind of coaching up Mike Anthony that's what I would assume. But as you'll get to later, there was a whole bunch of people that left. So was that a coaching thing? Like what was it that kind of didn't set well with players there internally? And then defensive coordinator DJ Smith comes back for his second season. So we have a new OC kind of, and then it's just going to have one versus not having one. So who's coming and going?
Yeah, I think I talked about this last show or maybe 2 shows ago. But App State had I didn't look it up, but like they have one of, if not the most personnel or roster turnover for a team that did not lose the head coach. And they have a lot like it might not, they're far more than some teams that did lose a head coach. But like in my opinion, like if there were odds without me looking it up on what team, at least in the G6 anyway, that had the most roster turnover without a head coach change, I'd bet a lot of money that it's App State. Like you said, not sure why or what's going on, but a lot of turnover here for the Mountaineers in 2026. All right, so who is leaving? They lose quarterback A.J. Swan to Mississippi State, quarterback J.J. Cole to Florida International. That's their 2 starting quarterbacks from 2025. Starting running back Rashad Dominions out of eligibility. Running back Khalifa Keith is back to the SEC and off to Alabama. Wide receiver Dalton Stroman out of eligibility. Wide receiver Jaden Barnes heads to in-state Carolina rival Charlotte. Wide receiver Davion Dozier heads to ACC rival NC State. Tight end Kanan Hamlet heads to another North Carolina rival in East Carolina. So they lost, 3 pass catchers to other North Carolina schools, which seems kind of crazy. Tight end Isaiah Cummings out of eligibility. Same for tight end David Larkins. Offensive lineman Griffin Scroggs off to UNLV. Moving over to the defensive side of the ball, defensive lineman Denigel Cooper to Wisconsin. Dylan Manuel to Colorado. And St. Farrier to Auburn. Those are all defensive linemen. Defensive tackles Bucci Farmer going over to ODU. Defensive tackle Rondo Porter to Rutgers. And edge Kevin Abrams Verwain out of eligibility. Edge Thomas Davis off to Tulsa. Davis was kicked off the team mid-season. So they played half the season without him anyway. Linebackers Kyle Arnholt out of eligibility. Brayshawn Littlejohn off to FIU. Heading over to the safeties, DJ Burks off to Tennessee. Elijah Macantos off to Colorado State. And Zaire Gamble off to in-state rival East Carolina. Cornerbacks Emory Floyd to Colorado. Ethan Johnson out of eligibility. And then freshman kicker Dominic DeFreitas is off to North Texas. So given all those changes, obviously they bring in all those folks leaving. They bring in a lot of guys into Boone. We'll start off with the offense and the quarterbacks. They bring Malachi Singleton from Purdue. Touchdown Tommy Ulatowski from Kennesaw State. Quarterback Henry Hasselback from UCLA. Running back Trayvon Webb from Florida and Jamarian Burnett from Houston. Wide receivers Desmond James from Cal. Zach Taylor from Arkansas. Sam Pickett III from Samford. And Samaj Fleming from Boston College. Tight end Luke Douglas from Florida State. On the offensive line, they bring in Donnell Nix Jr. from Sam Houston. Devin Manuel from Florida. Graydon Grimes from Kansas. And Mac Walters from South Carolina. On the defensive line, they bring in Aaron Clark from Towson. Ja'Kais Brown from Southeast Missouri State. Linebackers Alex Mitchell from Middle Tennessee. Keyshawn Thomas from ODU. Safeties Devin Henderson from Liberty. Cary Grant from Charlotte. Jacob Good from UCF. And Caleb Purdy from Tennessee Tech. Cornerbacks Joe Reddish from Virginia Tech. Dre Walker from Virginia. Jakari Henderson from UCF. And Josh Williams from Dayton, as well as Khalil Connolly from North Carolina, and kicker James London from Pitt. Man, a lot of changes. Like I don't really.
Why don't you take a breath? I mean, jeez.
I don't really know. Like given all those changes, man. Like I just feel like it's a lot of turnover. And
you know what this team reminds me of? It reminds me of Charlotte last year.
Yeah, I don't think it's
in the
quite
sense
that
of just
bad.
But like with the amount of people, granted, like the people that were coming in, coach knew who those players were from Ohio and stuff like that. But it just there's so much going on here. And when I'm like, usually it's pretty easy to kind of break these down of like, okay, you lost X and you brought in Y. Like, okay, like I think the offensive side might struggle. I think the defensive side might struggle. But like when I look at this, it's like, I don't know, that you lost some offensive linemen. I know James London was a good kicker like a couple years ago. I'm trying to remember where he was like FCS, I think, before Pitt. And I don't know if he actually kicked at Pitt. Like, I think he was there in the preseason, but then I think he might have not been on the team. Not sure. I don't know if he has any stats there for Pitt, but like you lose offense, or you lose like a couple offensive linemen, 5 offensive linemen, I think it was. But they don't really bring in a whole bunch. And then it's like, all right, you lost 5 here, you brought in 4. You lost 4, you brought in 5. But like, there's no one that really stands out of like, this is a dude. I think you lost a lot of really good wide receivers. And you bring in some, but like, I don't know if they're the talent that you just lost. So we'll see how that system, benefits them. Obviously, you like those guys that are going to run drag routes in this offense, but you got to have somebody who throws the ball. As a touchdown Tommy? We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, like I don't know, like of
Malachi
what they brought
Singleton,
in, like I think they'll be similar to what they were a year ago. Not very good, not like terrible, but not very good. A team that might struggle to get to 500. Offensively, I like Jakari Lewis. They bring in Trevon Webb, I think, which is good. So if they can get the offensive line going, I think they can have a good running game. But to your point, like I don't know about like any of the quarterbacks they bring in. I don't know. Malachi Singleton like did nothing at Arkansas, nothing at Purdue. The reports out of Purdue camp last year were not good for Malachi Singleton. So not sure, if he's going to be able to get anything going here at App State. And then like the receivers, like you said, they lost some pretty good receivers. And they lost a lot on that defensive line. Like, they lost a lot of talent on the defensive line. So yeah, I don't know. I predict like another 4 to maybe six win season for App State, which is subpar for App State standards.
And you were talking about guys in the transfer portal, like among all, the G6. But if you're just looking at the Sun Belt, they had the most people enter the portal with 39.
I believe it. Right. And that's crazy considering like we have some coaching changes, right? You have JMU, you had Coastal Carolina off the top of my head.
Southern Miss.
Yeah, like that's crazy considering you had whole staffs leave. And you led your conference. Like I said, they were undoubtedly, in my opinion, the top roster turnover for a team that didn't lose their head coach, and they have more turnover than a lot of teams that did lose a head coach. So it kind of it's really weird. It's almost like Marshall from a year ago, kind of thing. But you didn't lose your head coach, so like it's just really strange, odd, weird.
All right. Well, let's move on over to the Arkansas State Red Wolves, who were 7-6 last year, 1 less win than their 8-5 season in 2024. Honestly, not awful, but thought they would have been a little bit better here in 2025. There is a coaching change as there's a new OC. Head coach Butch Jones returns for his 6th season, and after 7th season, Keith Heckenford is out as OC. He's now the quarterback coach at Iowa State. A little bit of foreshadowing. There's a quarterback going to Iowa State from this roster. So kind of makes sense why maybe he would go to Iowa State. So in comes Garrett Altman for his first season. He's never been an OC before. He's been coaching since 2018. In 2018 through 2021, he was a grad assistant at TCU. 2022 and 2023, he was an offensive analyst at New Mexico State. And then in 2024 and 2025, he was the QB coach at Vanderbilt. So, the New Mexico State to Vanderbilt, maybe that is the new Sean McVay and NFL type things. Oh, you're coming from this because the New Mexico State to Vandy has put Vandy on the map. So maybe there's something in the water there. But yeah, Garrett Altman will come over to be their OC, and the defensive coordinator Griff McCarley will be in his second season. Take it away, Justice.
This is another team, I don't know. I feel like maybe they got worse than they were a year ago, but we'll run it down for you. Players are losing. Their starting quarterback, Jalen Raynor, follows his OC to Iowa State. Running back, Jaquez Cross, is in the portal. Same for Cedric Hawkins. Star receiver, Corey Rucker, is out of eligibility. Tight end, Tyler Fortenberry, also off to Iowa State. Offensive tackle, Raleigh McGehee to Memphis. Edge, Ethan Hassler that's it for the offense. On the defense, edge, Ethan Hassler and edge, DeMarcus Hendricks are both out of eligibility. Drew Collins off to South Carolina, and defensive lineman Quincy Wright to Utah State. Cody Sigler on the defensive line off to Auburn. Going over to the linebackers, you got Javante Mackey to Texas State and Jordan Sample also to Texas State. And linebacker Aaron Alexander heads to North Texas. Cornerback Cedric Franklin II off to Ball State, and Trenton Allen Yo is still in the portal. The same with Avante Dickerson. So they lose their number one quarterback, lose a couple running backs, lose their number one receiver, number one tight end, a couple of offensive linemen, and then that defensive line takes a big hit with all those players either leaving or out of eligibility. Who are they bringing in? They bring in quarterback Trey Owens from Texas, quarterback Drew Dickey from Vanderbilt. So following his quarterback coach, who's now the OC there for Drew Dickey, and quarterback, same with quarterback Jeremy St. Hilaire, also coming over from Vanderbilt. Running back Corey Reddick Jr. from Valdosta State. Wide receiver Bosky Barrett coming over from Vanderbilt. Tight ends Jaden Ham from Kansas and Joshua Burrell from Furman. On the offensive line, they bring in Talon Chandler from Northwestern, Landry Cannon from Tulane, and Manasseh Atiti from Florida State. Also want to mention that Tristan Smith, who was one of our top offensive linemen a year ago for our 2020 guys, he entered the portal and returned. That's a big win for Arkansas State, keeping him. Moving over to the defensive side of the ball, starting with the defensive lineman, you got edge A.J. Thomas coming from McNeese, defensive lineman Tylen Coleman from Florida State, and Shakai Woods from Middle Tennessee. Linebackers Cam Moore from UCF and Joshua Ofor from NC State. Cornerbacks Dontre Henderson from Indiana, Bryson Ross, Portland State. 5 Hamilton from Kennesaw State. And then safeties, Makai Shaheed coming in from Youngstown State, and Jalen Hayward from UCF. Also another player that entered and is returning. Big get or big keep for them is safety A.G. McGee. Man, when I look at the West, I don't know. I don't see anybody looking really good in the West today. I mean, I guess if I had to pick a team today, I'm probably picking Louisiana, but I don't think Arkansas State got better than they were in 25.
I think offensive wise probably about the same ish. Defense considerably worse.
Yeah, I feel like the offense could be worse too, right? Maybe not. Maybe receivers they'll be okay, but quarterback, I think Jalen Raynor was, he by Sun Belt standards he was a pretty good quarterback. So, I mean, you got the 2 Vanderbilt guys coming in plus Trey Owens from Texas, so maybe they have something there, but they're all unproven. So, I think it's gonna, how their season is going to go is going to really be dictated by one of those quarterbacks can step up and emerge for the Red Wolves in 2026.
You said you like Louisiana, maybe Troy. They lose. We'll get to them later, but they're going to lose a lot on the offensive side. But I can't say their offense was great last year. It was mainly their defense. So and their defense is in a better spot than their offense is. At the moment. So maybe Troy has a repeat at showing up there in the conference championship. We will see. But we'll take a look at our next team here in the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers, 6-7 last year. Repeated their 6-7 season in 2024. So what does that mean? That means Tim Beck, you out of here. I don't care if you do free concessions. You get people in the stands. We don't care. I will be curious if they have those next year. Tim Beck's gone. Do they have that? Anyways. Coaching changes, new head coach, new OC, new DC. What has been consistent in their new head coach, OC, and DC? They have all been coaching together since 2013. Who are they? All right, head coach Tim Beck out after 3 seasons. He's now the OC at USF. In comes head coach Ryan Beard, his first season. He was the head coach at Missouri State in 2023 through 2025. He had a 21-14 record there at Missouri State. And of course, this last year with the Xbox Bowl appearance in their first season in the FBS. Prior to that, he was still at Missouri State, but as a defensive coordinator in 2020 through 2022. Central Michigan in 2019 as a DB coach, Louisville DB coach 2017 through 18, DB coach at Western Kentucky in 2016, and then 2012 through 2015 he was a grad assistant and defensive analyst at Western Kentucky. Defensive-minded headset there with Ryan Beard. So who's his OC? As Drew Hollingshead is out after 1 season, he's now an offensive analyst at Texas A&M. In comes Nick Petrino, also quarterbacks coach this season, will be his first season, but he was at Missouri State as the OC and quarterbacks coach in 2020 through 2025. Co-OC and quarterbacks coach at UT Martin in 2019, 2015 through 2018, Louisville quarterbacks coach. Then he was a grad assistant there in 2014 and 15. Western Kentucky student assistant in 2013, and then 2010 through 2011, Arkansas State student coach. And defensive coordinator out is Jeremiah Johnson after 1 season. He's going to be the defensive backs coach at Kansas State. In comes LD Scott. He will also coach the defensive line in his first season, and he was the defensive coordinator and defensive line coach at Missouri State 2023 through 2025. He was the run game coordinator and defensive line coach at Missouri State 2020 through 2022. Louisville defensive line 2014 through 2018. Western Kentucky defensive line or defensive ends in 2013 and 2014. Arkansas grad assistant 2012. Arkansas intern in 2011, and then Seneca High School in Kentucky defensive line coach in 2010. So like I said, they've been together since 2013, so a lot of familiarity with these guys coming over from Missouri State. Who's coming? Who's going?
That's kind of weird. Normally, it's not weird. They coached together recently, right? But they were together at Western Kentucky. They were together at Louisville.
In some fashions, yeah.
Missouri State, yeah. It's just kind of odd. That's not something you see every day or even routinely. All right, player personnel. Who they lose? Quarterback Samari Collier. He's in the transfer portal, but his situation, he's kind of tied to the whole JUCO stuff. He needs JUCO to that. He needs the Pavia ruling to say JUCO doesn't count at all for him to have another year. But nonetheless, he's in the portal in case that happens. Quarterback MJ Morris is off to Texas. Quarterback Tad Hudson and Emmett Brown are also still in the transfer portal. Running back Javin Simpkins is headed to UAB. Running back Demarion Petit off to Charlotte. Headed over to the wide receivers, you got Jamison Tucker out of eligibility. Bryson Graves heads over to Delaware. On the offensive line, Zach Elam out of eligibility. And Nick Del Grande off to Duke. It's a big loss for Coastal Carolina. He was one of our top offensive linemen in 2025 in our 2020 players, one of the top in all of college football. Offensive lineman Julius Tate off to South Florida, and Joseph Hansen off to Oklahoma State. Moving over to the defensive side of the ball on the defensive line, you got Jaden Bryant leaving for Kansas State, Javan Augustus to Idaho, and Ezekiel Durham Campbell to West Virginia, Darian Henry Young to UVA, and Jordan Mack to Baylor, Tyler Moore to Colorado. Linebackers, Shane Bruce out of eligibility, Nate Gregory to Kent State, Luke Murphy to UConn. Cornerbacks, Laurel Howling to UL Monroe, and Zach Cody to Rice. And then safeties, Zamarian Gordon out of eligibility, and kicker, Kian Afrukta off to Utah State. So who are they bringing in? One thing I just want to say real quick, like kind of interesting, they bring in quite a few Arkansas guys. And my assumption is that's got to be the Petrino connection, right? So if you don't know, Nick Petrino is the son of Bobby Petrino. Bobby Petrino was the OC and then the interim head coach there for a time at Arkansas this past season. So I'm assuming all these Arkansas guys, like this was dad giving them over to his son. So we'll start there at quarterback. Trevor Jackson comes over from Arkansas. Quarterback Deuce Bailey, freshman a year ago, saw a couple starts from Missouri State for an injured Jacob Clark. But he follows that staff over from Missouri State. Running back Dalen Alexander from Rice. Running back Rodney Hill from Arkansas. And running back Jaden Allen Hendricks from Oklahoma State. Wide receivers, you got Tristan Gardner, another high-profile freshman there at Missouri State, following that staff over to Coastal. Wide receiver Cross Johnson from Arkansas. Wide receiver Goldie Lawrence from Florida A&M. Tight end Jackson Cole from Missouri State. If I remember correctly, I think Jackson Cole was like one of the highest rated freshmen that Missouri State ever landed. And so he comes over with that staff to Coastal. On the offensive line, you got Mason Barton coming from Jackson State, Daughtry Richardson from Florida Atlantic. Defensive line, you got Regis Jean from Northern Illinois, Mitchell Toney from Missouri State, Shandavian Bradley from Oklahoma State, Donovan Grayson from Samford. Linebackers, Jesse Powell II from Elon, Marcellus Pulliam from Michigan State, Azriel Juice from Bryant. Safeties, Tyler Woodard from Mississippi State, and Jalen Lee from South Dakota State. And kicker, Daniel Porto coming over from Florida A&M. I like what they did. I think they'll have Coastal Carolina competitive in year one. I don't expect them to win the East, but again, I think a 5-6 win team, maybe 7-win team for year one, and for Ryan Beard there at Coastal. I think the fans will take it. I think they'll show more promise and progress perhaps than the old regime did.
Obviously, I think offensive-wise, Tristan Gardner, the wide receiver coming over from Missouri State, probably one of the bigger gets that they had. We'll see if they stick with Deuce Bailey or if they go with Trevor Jackson. My assumption that they would stick with Deuce Bailey. Not sure, maybe though, if he's ready. He looked pretty raw last year in his starts, but you saw glimpses there. So I'll be curious on that. And I think looking at their team and what they lost, just not having Samari Collier back is probably going to be the biggest. Because once they found out, once he started balling out, I mean, granted, he wasn't a great passer, but he could run the ball. And I think that team probably gets a little bit weaker on the offensive side of the ball. If not, maybe stays about the same. But like you said,
think offensive line is
intrigued.
probably the biggest question on offense for me.
Yeah.
And then I think the defense, I don't know, like it wasn't great a year ago. I don't expect it to be great here in 2026 either. And Missouri State wasn't really, great on defense. So yeah, I don't know. Like I think they get the bowl eligibility in 6 wins in year 1 for Ryan Beard. But yeah, no more free concessions. I don't think they got to pay for all those new contracts.
Well, let's move on over to Georgia Southern Eagles, who are 7-6 last season, 1 less win than their 8-5 season in 2024. Is Clay Helton on the hot seat? Is it getting warm this year? I think it could be. He's coming back for his 5th season. OC Ryan Applin comes back for his 3rd season. But defensive coordinator Brandon Bailey out after 3 seasons. They bring in defensive coordinator Mike Mutz. It'll be his 1st season. He's done it all. He was a defensive coordinator and linebacking coach at Stephen F. Austin 2023 through 2025. Linebackers at Tulane 2016 through 2022. Georgia Southern linebackers 2014 through 2015. Sam Houston, defensive backs in 2013. Blinn College defensive coordinator in 2012. Missouri Southern State defensive coordinator, defensive backs coach 2010 and 2011. Missouri Southern State special teams coach 2008 through 2009. Missouri Southern State defensive backs coach 2006 through 2007. Sam Houston defensive line 2004 through 2005. Fort Scott, Kansas Community College defensive line special teams 2001 through 2003. 1998 through 2000 Southern Illinois defensive line and defensive backs coach. Like, he's done it all everywhere. I think it'll be a good hire for this defense that has had its woes here the last couple seasons. That is for sure.
Yeah, one of the worst defenses in college football in 2025. I don't know that it gets much better in 26. It can't really get any worse. I do think the offense gets worse in 26 for sure. They lose their starting quarterback, J.C. French IV. He is off to Cincinnati. Quarterback Tyler Budge to Rhode Island. Starting running back O.J. Arnold out of eligibility. Star receiver Camden Brown out of eligibility. Wide receiver Marcus Sanders and Dalen Cobb also out of eligibility. And wide receiver Dylan Gary off to Kennesaw State. On the offensive line, they lose Chandler Strong to North Texas. Robert Wright Jr. to Michigan State, Johnny Brown III to Ball State, Caleb Cook to South Florida. Moving over to the defense, on that defensive line, Amari Wilson's off to Southern Miss, Davion Rose to North Texas, and Devin Lowe to Memphis. Linebacker, their leading tackler from a year ago, Brendan Harrington is out of eligibility, and safety Aiden Jackson is off to South Florida. They do get back Chance Campbell, cornerback Chance Campbell, one of the top cornerbacks in the Sun Belt, who missed last year with an injury. He does return, so that's good for Georgia Southern. Who are they bringing in? This first one, the quarterback, and I assume he's going to be the starter. But my God, it feels like it's his 14th season of college football, and that's Mac Johnson coming over from UNC. Man, he's been so many different places. He's not been good at all. Not that I think J.C. French set the world on fire or anything, but I feel like they've gotten significantly worse at quarterback. They bring in wide receiver Andre Green Jr. from Virginia, Cam McKell from Colorado, King Phillips from Texas A&M Kingsville, Alex Taylor from UNC, Ashton Hollins from Illinois, and Noble Johnson from Arizona State, Cameron King from Auburn. So they bring in a whole bunch of receivers, which they needed to, given what they lost. I don't know that any of those guys is the next Camden Brown. Josh Dallas, who missed most of last year with injury, does return. So he's right now, I think he's probably their number one receiver. On the offensive line, they bring in Josh Raymond from Florida State, Mo Clipper Jr. from Charlotte. On the defensive line, they do return MJ Stroud. He entered the transfer portal, but he did decide to return, so that's a big help for this defense. They bring in edge Anthony Bynum from Middle Tennessee, Omarion Brown from Wofford, linebackers Rashawn Miles Jr. from Abilene Christian, and then cornerbacks Aiden McGowan from Nichols, Noah Mangum from Abilene Christian, and Greg Delane from Syracuse, and then kicker Blake Ford comes over from Arkansas. Yeah, I think Helton is looking for a new. We'll be looking for a new job in 2026. I think Georgia Southern fans in Statesboro have probably wanted him gone for the last 2 years.
2 years, yeah.
I think that they feel like he's going to win you 8 games, but he's not going to lead you to the promised land. He's not going to win the Sun Belt East, much less the entire Sun Belt. Well, I don't think this year he even gets to 7 or 8 wins. I think they're at the bottom of the East down there with Georgia State, in my opinion. Like I said, the defense was bad a year ago. Can't really get much worse. But I think the offense takes a big step back, especially with the quarterback play. Because I really would not want to have to rely on Max Johnson being my quarterback. He's been around, got a lot of experience, but he's never been good at any of his stops. So
when you describe Clay Helton and what he can do, just reminds me of the terminology usually for NFL running backs. Like, you need 3 yards, he'll get you 3 yards. You need 8 yards, he'll get you 3 yards. Like that's what you're getting, and be happy with it. Another head coach on the hot seat, probably out after this year. Georgia State Panthers 1-11 last season, 2 less wins in their 3-9 season in 2024. Things had to get shaken up a little bit as head coach Del McGee coming back for his 3rd season. Gotta imagine things need to change big time, otherwise he will be out. It's not going to be a change in the OC, which Hugh Jackson will be in his 2nd season there. But defensive coordinator out is Travis Pearson after 1 season. He's now with the Birmingham Stallions as their defensive backs coach, which, on a side note, joins the 2024 defensive coordinator in Kevin Shearer, who was a DC with the Stallions. So Kevin Shearer, defensive coordinator 2 seasons ago in their 3-9 season, goes to become the DC with the Stallions. Then you have Travis Pearson in a 1-11 season. Now he's going to go help Kevin Shearer. I don't watch too much of the USFL or whatever it is, whatever it's called now. But I don't know how this Birmingham Stallions defense is, and I'm not feeling great. So what do they do? They're like, well, Travis Pearson was so good, we need 2 people to do his job. We got 2 co-DCs. You got Cam Clark in his 1st season and John Hanline in his 1st season. First, Cam Clark, 2024 and 2025, senior analyst with quarterbacks at Duke, 2022 and 2023, defensive coordinator and safeties coach at Thomas County Central High School in Georgia. He was at Western Illinois in 2020 and 2021 as the defensive coordinator and safeties coach, co-DC at Lamar University 2017 through 2019, coached the safeties in 2017, coached the linebackers in 2018 and 2019, but co-DC with all of those. 2015 through 16, defensive coordinator and safeties coach at Faulkner University. He did special teams in 2016, and then he grad assistant at Auburn, defensive grad assistant, and then he was at Arkansas State in previous years. So he is one of the co-DCs. John Hanline is the other co-DC in his 1st season, 2022 through 2025, Youngstown State head coach. In 2020, he was at Youngstown State in 2022 through 2025. In 2022, he was linebacker coach. 2023, co-DC. 2024 through 2025, DC and linebacking coach. He was also at Western Illinois in 2018 through 2021 with the defensive line. He was added the defensive run game specialist in 2019 through 2021, which is where he met Cam Clark, who was at Western Illinois as a defensive coordinator in 2020 through 2021. So based off of kind of what I'm seeing there, with one guy, John Hanline, being the defensive line coach and Cam Clark being the defensive coordinator at Western Illinois, my guess is it's probably a Cam Clark led defense. John Hanline was also defensive quality control at Mississippi State 2016 through 2017, linebacker coach at the Colorado School of Mines in 2015. He also was an interim linebacker coach after that season for the Colorado School of Mines and helped out at Mississippi State in 2015, and then some grad assistant stuff at Toledo and Mississippi State. So who's coming, who's going?
Yeah, I think this coaching staff will be looking for new jobs here in 2026. I don't see things improving for Del McGee. I think they're easily probably the worst team again in the Sun Belt East, and so Del McGee was known as a great recruiter, but none of that's. He's brought in some good classes, but like none of that talent has translated to wins there at Georgia State, and I think 2026 will be more of the same. All right, who they're losing? Quarterback Christian Veillere out of eligibility. Quarterback P.J. Hatter is in the transfer portal. Quarterback T.J. Finley is at Incarnate Word. Running back Rashad Amos out of eligibility. Running back Branson Robinson was not listed as being in the transfer portal, but he's also not listed on the 2026 spring roster there for Georgia State. So not really sure what's going on with him. Running back DJ Braswell in the transfer portal. Same with running back Jordan Simmons in the transfer portal. Running back Tawan Payton Jr., friend of the show, is off to East Tennessee State. Their star wide receiver Ted Hurst is off to the NFL. Tight end Camden Overton Howard out of eligibility. Wide receiver Javon Robinson off to Utah State. On the offensive line, Obadiah Obasui off to Austin Peay. Dominic Johnson to Toledo. Alec Johnson to Western Kentucky. Moving over to the defensive side of the thing and the defensive side of things and the defensive line, you got Edge Marlon Dean to UAB. Bishop Thomas to Oklahoma. Jertavius Flournoy, a really good freshman for them in 2025, off to Syracuse. Moving over to the linebackers, Josiah Robinson in the transfer portal, Demaine Wilson to Cincinnati, Kedrick Walker to Baylor. Safeties, Chandler Jordan to Boston College, Dicey Hopkins to Liberty, Jalen Jones to Virginia. Cornerbacks, Shyam Diagne to West Virginia, Deuce Fillmore to Illinois, Tyler Scott to Arkansas, and Bernard Causey III to Wake Forest. And punter, one of the best punters in the Sun Belt a year ago, Reed Chanley is off to Florida Atlantic. Who are they bringing in? You got quarterback Aiden Pereira from Merrimack, running back Jalen Poe from Northern Illinois, running back Keith Adams Jr. from Clemson, running back Savion Hart from Georgetown, wide receivers Chase Allen Jackman from Washburn, Owen Dupree from West Georgia, and Isaiah Stone from LSU. Offensive linemen, you got Jordan Brown from Arizona, Kelton Smith Jr. from Georgia, Marcus Mescal from Florida, Connor Jones from Michigan, Gage Stanlin from Oklahoma State, and Dalen Hazard from Iowa State. Moving over to the defensive side, you got defensive lineman Kelsey Howard from Oregon State, linebacker Jaden Hood from Michigan, safety Deuce Lee from Monmouth, the safety Trey Mittman from North Carolina A&T. I just feel like they've gotten pretty much worse on all fronts. Like, what they lost. I mean, not that they were great a year ago, but they had some talented guys on defense. Lost them. Lost Ted Hurst. their best offensive player. They do return Cameron Brown at quarterback, which is positive. But yeah, I struggle to see, them reaching 500 and getting bowl eligibility. I think they're easily the worst team in the Sun Belt. And I think Del McGee probably loses his job at some point in 2026.
I think they made a really good hire for the defensive coordinator, but I think it's too little, too late type thing. And then these players, losing the players that they did on the defensive side of the ball is going to make things even harder there for John Hanline and Cam Clark. So, all right, let's talk about the James Madison Dukes, who were Sun Belt champions last year. They go to the playoffs with their 12-2 record, 3 more wins than their 9-4 season in 2024. You do so well, James Madison. You lose your coaches. That's just what happens. You lose your players. We have a new coaching staff, new head coach, new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator. Bob Chesney out after 2 seasons as head coach as he now takes over at UCLA. God, that's going to be a great UCLA versus Indiana whenever they play. Just JMU versus JMU, the Spider-Man meme. In comes head coach Billy Napier. Sunbelt Billy is back. He's 62-35 as a head coach. It'll be his first season with James Madison. He was the head coach at Florida 2022 through 2025. And then, of course, Sunbelt Billy, Louisiana's head coach 2018 through 2021. Been coaching since 2003, but more importantly, he was a Sunbelt Coach of the Year 2019, 2021, 2 Sunbelt championships, 2020, 2021, and 4 Sunbelt West championships in 2018 through 2021. He knows how to win in the Sunbelt. I wasn't super pumped. I wasn't super pumped about Billy Napier going to Florida in general. But I will say James Madison seems to know how to find coaches, and they pick really good ones. So I'm like, okay, well, I don't know if I'm totally out on Billy Napier. I don't love the hire, but I trust what James Madison does from a hiring standpoint. Now that means you've got Bob Chesney out, so he's taking with him offensive coordinator Dean Kennedy after his 2 seasons. He goes to be the offensive coordinator and quarterback coach at UCLA. Defensive coordinator Colin Hitchler out after 1 season. He's going to go be the defensive coordinator at UCLA. So Cam Aiken comes in to be the OC in his first season. He was with Ole Miss in 2025 playoffs as an offensive consultant. In 2025 during the season, he was at East Tennessee State University as an offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach. He was an Ole Miss offensive analyst in 2023 and through 2024. South Florida running backs and running game coordinator in 2021, and then through 2022, 2025 through 2020. Through 2020 was Clemson senior offensive analyst, offensive player development, and then he was did some graduate and intern stuff at Clemson and UAB. On the defensive side, they bring in Robert Bala for his first season. He was at Florida as a co-defensive coordinator and linebacker coach in 2025. Washington inside linebackers in 2024, Alabama inside linebackers in 2023, Liberty defensive analyst in 2022, Southern Utah defensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach, linebacker coach 2018 through 2021, Ottawa special teams coordinator and defensive backs coach in 2017, 2025 through 2026, or 2015 through 2016, Palmer College defensive coordinator. Did I say 2027 for Ottawa, or did I say 17?
No, I think you said 17.
I just messed up there. He was an intern with the Oakland Raiders in 2014, 2011 through 13, Palmer College defensive coordinator, and then Snow College, a linebacker in 2009 through 2010. So quite the resume, kind of all over but yeah, most recently with Florida.
I mean, a couple of things like with this new staff. One, people always talk about the success that Sunbelt Billy had when he was in the Sunbelt, but like a couple of things. One, he was in the Sunbelt West, like, and generally speaking, that's viewed as the weaker side of the Sunbelt. The other thing to note, when he was winning, in the Sunbelt, I don't believe his record versus the East was very good. Obviously, his record versus the West was really good. He kind of dominated the West, but I don't think his record versus the East teams was very good. And there was no ODU, obviously no JMU, no Southern Miss. Those teams, no Marshall. Those teams weren't in the Sun Belt back when Billy Napier was in the Sun Belt. So, I mean, I get why they hired him. It's a little bit of a departure from what JMU has done in the past. Because he's a retread. That's what he is. He's a retread coach. In the past, what they have done is gone after high performing from lower divisions, high performing coaches from lower divisions, up and comers, if you will. So this was a little bit of a departure. It's also the first major hire that the new athletic director had to do. So I think at the end of the day, I think JMU is going to be good, but I don't think they're going to be good by JMU standards, if that makes sense, right? Like, I just don't. I don't know. Like, maybe my view of Billy is a little bit different than others. I mean, I think he's going to have them, in the upper like third, or expect them to finish like top 3 in the Sun Belt East. But I don't necessarily think they're going to win the Sun Belt East. But anyway, we'll get to the players that they are losing. They lose quarterback Alonzo Barnett III off to UCF. Matt Sluka out of eligibility. Running back Wayne Knight follows the staff over to UCLA. Running back Ayo Adeyi off to Oklahoma State. Wide receivers Nick DeGennaro and Jalen Sanchez out of eligibility. Wide receiver Landon Ellis and tight end Josh Pfeiffer follow the staff over to UCLA. Tight end Lakota Dupree off to Florida. Offensive lineman Carter Sweesley off to UCLA. Staying with the offensive line, we got Joseph Simmons to Auburn, Trent Wilson to Iowa, Jacob Bailey to Western Michigan, Pat McMurtry out of eligibility, Riley Roble and J.D. Rayner off to UCLA. On the defensive side of things, Sahir West, UCLA, Emmanuel Easygo, defensive lineman to Colorado, defensive tackle Emmanuel Bush and Andrew Taddeo out of eligibility, defensive lineman Aiden Gabara to UCLA, linebacker Drew Spinagati to UCLA, linebacker Trent Hendrick out of eligibility, safety Jacob Thomas out of eligibility, safety Tyler Brown to UCLA, cornerback DJ Barksdale to Tyler Brown went to Iowa. Cornerback DJ Barksdale to UCLA, cornerback Justin Eaglin to Colorado, and cornerback Elijah Culp out of eligibility.
This defensive side takes a hit.
Well, offense too. I don't know they return a single starter on offense or defense. From
all the guys going to the line. It's also, regardless of talent, you don't have your Auburns, your UCLAs, your Iowas take guys from a stature standpoint that don't look the part. Obviously they have some talent if they're going up. Now, whether they play or not, different story. But when you have Big Ten bodies in the Sun Belt, that's a big thing, and you're losing that.
All right, who are they bringing in? Quarterback, they bring in Arrington Maiden coming over from Memphis. Quarterback Davy Belfort from UCF. Running back Nick Herman from Drake. Seth Cromwell from Northern Arizona. Wide receivers, Micah Matthews from Virginia Tech, Jeremiah Harrison from East Tennessee State, and Kylan Billiot from LSU. Offensive lineman, Noel Portjangan from Florida, Caden Massey from Kansas State, Frankie Tenelau from East Tennessee State, Josh Manecki from Army, Tyler Brown from Colorado, Daniel Michelle from FIU, Chuck Wonedu Okeke from Western Kentucky. Moving over to the defensive side of things, edge Ernest Willard Jr. from Wisconsin, Katron Simpson from Lamar, defensive lineman Rasheed Lovelace from Nicholls State, linebacker Nakean Johnson from Nevada, cornerback DJ Kelly from Toledo, and cornerback Terrence Jones II from Fordham. I give them the benefit of the doubt and say they're going to finish the top 3 in the Sun Belt East. But if this thing was to like fall completely flat on their face in terms of like, I don't know, getting like 5 wins, I don't know. That would really surprise me either. I would be shocked if they win the Sun Belt. That would surprise me. You know, and if they finish last in the East, that would surprise me. But anything in between those two kind of extremes, I don't know that I'd really be shocked. I think my general feeling is it's going to, you know, they're going to win 7-8 games, and like that's fine, but that's not JMU standards.
Well, let's get to the team that Justice thinks might have a leg up for the Sun Belt Championship. Louisiana Ragin' Cajuns, right? That's what you said earlier. You think they might?
I think they're my favorite for the West. Yeah.
Well, let's dig into it and why that is. So they had 4 less wins in 2025 at 6-7 than they did in their 10-4 season in 2024. But there's a lot of continuity coming back. Justice will get to the players, but they had the least amount of players that they lost. They had the least amount of players that they added in the portal. Like, this would be like one of those small towns that you drive by that you blink and you miss it because there's not a lot of things changing. No coaching changes. Head coach Michael Desimo comes back for his 5th season. Tim Lager comes back for his 6th season as offensive coordinator. Jim Salgado comes back for his 3rd season. And then, I mean, they lose a couple big pieces, but a lot of things are going to stay the same here in Louisiana.
Yeah, they lose. I mean, the big losses are on defense, but I think they'll be able to replace those guys. But who they lose? They lose quarterback Walker Howard off to Ole Miss, running back Zylan Perry to Cincinnati, running back Bill Davis to Virginia Tech, wide receiver Robert Williams out of eligibility on the offensive line, Bryant Williams off to Arkansas, Jax Harrington out of eligibility. Moving over to the defense, on that defensive line, they lose Drennan Fight III and Jordan Lawson out of eligibility. Edge Cam Whitfield also out of eligibility. Linebacker Jaden Duggar, who was our Sun Belt Defensive Player of the Year for 2025, is out of eligibility. Linebacker Terrence Williams out of eligibility. Safety Jalen Clark out of eligibility. Safety Tyree Skipper out of eligibility. And cornerback Cortland Flowers out of eligibility. The biggest losses are on, I feel like, on that defense, where they got to, replace some defensive linemen, linebackers, and safeties. But I think, compared to the rest of the West, they're in pretty good shape. Who are they bringing in? They don't bring in a whole lot. They bring in offensive lineman Jace Mitchell from Tulane. On the defensive line, they bring in Tito Chikere from East Texas A&M, and a linebacker Princeton Malbrew from Tulane. I think it's more notable who they keep. Offense. Lunch Winfield comes back, right? Lunch Winfield took over for Walker Howard after he got injured, and Lunch Winfield just freaking willed those guys to a couple of wins in 2025. So he's back for 2026, and then their star receiver Shelton Sampson also returned. So those two. I look at those two guys, and the, like you said, the continuity of the coaching staff, returning a lot of a lot of experience on that offense, and not having a lot of roster turnover. For me right now, they would be my favorite in the Sun Belt East, Sun Belt West. I'm sorry, Sun Belt West.
Well, now let's take a look at the Marshall Thundering Herd, who were 5-7 last season, 5 less wins than their conference championship in 2024 and their 10-3 season. Tony Gibson as head coach comes back for his second season, brings back offensive coordinator Rod Smith for his second season, but they are bringing in a new defensive coordinator as Shannon Morrison is out after one season. They bring in Brad Lambert. He was a defensive coordinator in 2019 and 2020 for Marshall, but in 2025 he was Kentucky's defensive analyst. 2022 through 2024, Wake Forest defensive coordinator, linebacker coach. Purdue in 2021, co-DC and linebacker coach, like I said, and Marshall defensive coordinator and safeties coach in 2020. Marshall's defensive coordinator, linebacker coach in 2019. Charlotte's head coach 2011 and 20 through 2018, but he's been coaching since before I was born. I was born in 89. He started coaching in 1988. So he's coached at Marshall from 1990 through 1995 as a defensive backs coach, 1990 defensive end, 91 through 95 defensive backs coach there. So he's familiar with Marshall, and I'm sure when we talk to the Thundering Herd and do a deep dive, they'll mention about Brad Lambert being like a Marshall guy through and through, will be my guess. Who do we got coming and leaving?
So Marshall's the team. I think if I was to pick today, I'd pick second in the Sun Belt East. I'd have JMU third, I think, today. I like what they did. I like what Tony Gibson did in year one, and I think they'll just build upon that here in their second season. But they do lose some pieces. Running back Michael Allen off to ECU. Staying with the running back room, Justin Williams-Thomas off to UMass, and Antoine Roberts to Arizona. Wide receiver, their leading wide receiver, DeMarcus Lacey, is out of eligibility. Offensive line, Christian Richter off to UConn. Moving over to defense. Defensive line, Katron Evans to NC State, Sid Kaba to Minnesota, Naquan Crowder to Minnesota, Jamal Weiss Jr. to Baylor, Paul Hudson III to Washington State, linebacker Jabril Alameen to Kansas, cornerback Darrell Sweeting to UAB, cornerback Marvin Myers out of eligibility, safety Cam Smith out of eligibility, and their kicking sensation Lorcan Quinn off to Alabama. Who are they bringing in? They're bringing in quarterback Khalil Wilkins from West Virginia, running back Jamarian Wilcox from Kentucky, running back TJ Lester from West Georgia, wide receivers Chris Culliver from North Carolina, and Christian Hamilton from West Virginia. On the offensive line, you got Jaquez Joyner coming from Central Florida, Robbie Martin coming from West Virginia, as well as Xavier Bosley from West Virginia. Moving over to the defense, on the defensive line, got Mike Williams Jr. coming from UTSA, Terry Nwabusi Ezelia from Vanderbilt, Kenyatta Harge II from Kentucky, BJ Carter from Iowa State, Cole Funderburk from Wake Forest, linebacker Kelvin McBride, NC State, cornerbacks Ahmad Edwards from Kentucky, and Eddie Pleasant III from Buffalo, and safety Rente Hinton from NC State. So, I mean, what they lost was on defense. I think they've done a good job of backfilling those losses on defense. Carlos Del Rio Wilson comes back at quarterback. I think they're fine. I think they will compete for the Sun Belt East title in the second year there for Coach Gibson. I currently would pick them second, but I think it's gonna be a good year for Marshall, and they're gonna be in the hunt for a Sun Belt East and a conference championship in 2026.
Well, I haven't heard you talk about this team competing for a championship. But it's Old Dominion Monarchs, Justice's ODU, 10-3 in 2024, 5 more wins compared to their 5-7 season they were 10-3 in 2025, 5 more wins compared to their 5-7 season in 2024. Ricky Ronnie coming back as head coach for his 7th season. Well, technically his 6th. There's 0 games played in his first season in 2020. But they will have a new OC as Kevin Decker, out after 3 seasons, goes over to Memphis to be the OC. There, they bring in quotes, Cody Cook to be their OC in his first season. He's been at ODU as a wide receiver coach in 2024 and 2025. He was a Tennessee assistant wide receiver coach in 2022 through 2023. And then you get to the root of probably where all these Hutchinson community colleges guys come from there in Kansas. 2017 through 2021, he was at Hutchinson Community College, coached tight ends and inside wide receivers in 2017. He was with the wide receivers, the passing game coordinator. He was co-OC in 2020 and 2021. Kansas State student assistant in 2016, and then he played at Hutchinson and Kansas State. Defensive coordinator Blake Seiler, back for his 7th season. Well, again, 6th season, same as Ricky Ronnie. No games played there in 2020. Who's leaving? Who's coming? Why is ODU not picked to be your champion, Justice?
They are.
Oh,
I think this is the year they win the Sun Belt East. I don't know that I'm ready to say they're the Sun Belt champion, but I think they do win the Sun Belt East this year. But they lose a lot, especially on offense. They lose all starters on offense except for one. But I do like what they have and what they brought in. I think they will be fine. Who's leaving? Quarterback Colton Joseph off to Wisconsin. Running back Traquan Jones to Tulsa. Running back Bull Hargrove out of eligibility. Wide receiver Trey Brown III off to LSU. Wide receiver Ja'Cory Thomas to Vanderbilt. Wide receiver Naeem Abdul-Rahim Gladding to Maryland. Wide receiver Titus Myers to Akron. Wide receiver TJ Lott to Troy. Tight end Dawson Johnson to Tulane. Tight end Jalen Butler to Kansas. Offensive lineman Skylar Grant and Martine Woodsma off to Memphis. Offensive lineman Stephon DeBose-Bourne, Ryan Joyce, and Zach Barlev all out of eligibility. On the defensive line, you got Chris Spencer over to UAB. Edge Chris Trinidad out of eligibility, as well as defensive tackle Ricardo Williams Jr. out of eligibility. Linebackers Jaleel Colbreth off to UCF. Keyshawn Thomas off to App State. Seth Nawataloa out of eligibility, the same as linebacker Jeremy Mack. Safety Jerome Carter III off to Clemson. Safety Nikendre Steiger out of eligibility. Same with cornerback Botros Alessandro. I look at that list, I feel like I said this many times a year ago, that I felt like ODU was the most talented team in the Sun Belt. And then I look at where all these guys went, and I feel like, well, yeah, that just kind of shows that they had a lot of talent on this team in 2025.
UCF, LSU, Vanderbilt, Clemson, Wisconsin, Maryland, yeah.
Yeah, they had a lot of talent a year ago, and they were a more talented team on an individual talent basis, I think, than JMU, but they did not play as well together as JMU, that's for sure. Who are they bringing in? So we got quarterback Jackson Potter coming from Washington State, running back Trey Hall from Ole Miss, running back Hunter Patterson from West Liberty, wide receivers J.J. Harrell from Holmes Community College. Before that, he was at Mississippi State. Wide receiver Zion Agnew from Lenore-Rhine. Before that, he was East Carolina. Wide receiver Kendall Harris from Mercer. Tight end Leon Houghton Jr. from Maryland. Tight end Lonnie Johnson from Tyler. Community College. Offensive line, they bring in Bubba Craig from Arkansas, Braden Walker from Elon, Martez Curry from Lincoln, Kylan Gates from Lincoln. On the defensive line, they bring in Bucci Farmer from App State. Linebackers, Montreal Chapman from Mississippi State, and Jamez Drummer from Towson. Drummer was at ODU before he went to Towson last year. And then I just want to note, true freshman on our all G5 freshman team, Jackson Forrest. He entered the portal, but he is returning to ODU. The same with cornerback Zion Frank. Those are two big returners they got back that entered the portal. And then quarterback Javon Bailey from NC State. Offense, my gut tells me it's going to be Quinn Henicle at quarterback. If I was probably setting odds, I'm probably giving him 60% that he's the starting quarterback. He's very similar to Colton Joseph. Colton Joseph, a very, very good runner. In his 2 starts, he had a start at the end of his freshman year, his true freshman season, where he redshirted. He started the last game of the year against Arkansas State. He had almost 200 yards rushing, I think, and 2 touchdowns, and then
he had 98 on the opening drive, or 96 or something.
Yeah, and then he started the bowl game in the win over South Florida, and he had over 100 yards there and 2 rushing touchdowns. The big question with him is, can he be competent enough in the passing game, to keep defenses honest? I mean, we're being honest about Colton Joseph. He wasn't. He had games where he was amazing in the passing game, particularly the game against Virginia Tech. But overall, it was his legs that what he's known for, and the same with Quinn Henicle. Jackson Potter, much more of a pocket passer. I guess I would characterize him as having more functional mobility. I do like the running back room. I think the running back room got better. Trey Jones, I think he's going to be a dude. And then Hunter Patterson, the kid from West Liberty, he's it wouldn't shock me if they use him in the slot some. I mean, I want to say he caught 56 passes a year ago at West Liberty.
Why am I blanking on the guy who ended up going to the Broncos?
Blake Watson.
Blake Watson. Is he kind of like a Blake Watson type, you think?
No, I think Hunter Patterson is more of a third down back, very effective out of the backfield in terms of catching passes. Again, like I said, it wouldn't shock me if they say, hey, we're going to try him out as slot receiver. I think he's more of a replacement for Traquan Jones, but I think he's a better version of Traquan Jones. Traquan Jones a year ago was either going to get you 90 yards on a play or he wasn't going to do a whole lot. There wasn't a lot of in between with him. It was he either busted it long or didn't do too much. Wide receiver, it's going to be hard to replace Trey Brown, Ja'Cory Thomas, and Naeem Gladding. But, I feel good with J.J. Harrell, one of the top guys there from Mississippi State. Like I say, he was at Holmes Community College a year ago. But Josh Rodriguez was a true freshman a year ago. He wasn't eligible last year. He redshirted. That dude is going to be he's going to be a baller for Old Dominion. I really like Josh Rodriguez. And then the defense returns a lot of players. And so they're one of the best defenses in the Sun Belt in 2025. I expect more of the same in 2026. I fully expect that Old Dominion is going to be hiring a new coach at the end of the season because I expect Ricky Ryan to have an outstanding year, and he's probably going to get poached by some P4. But we'll see. Spring practice starts here at the end of the month. I'll be there. We'll see how things go. But yeah, if I was to pick teams today, they would be my favorite. Old Dominion would be my favorite to win the Sun Belt East.
All right. Well, now let's move on over to the South Alabama Jaguars. 4-8 last year, 3 less wins than their 7-6 season in 2024. Could it be because they lost their quarterback late, in 2025? Yeah, that probably. But I think Major Applewhite coming back for his third season as head coach, maybe on the hot seat. Usually you see coaches start firing coordinators before they, their butts on the line. Well, out is offensive coordinator Paul Petrino after one season. He's gone on to be the Louisville tight end coach. There's no OC on staff, so I assume it's going to be Major. Hey, if my butt's on the line, I'm going to start calling my own plays. Like I don't know. That's just reading between the lines there. Defensive coordinator out is Will Windham after 2 seasons. He's going to be the Texas State defensive coordinator and safeties coach, but they did keep co-DC and quarterbacks coach Jason Washington for his second season, but they bring in a new defensive coordinator and inside linebacker coach Todd Orlando for his first season. He was with South Florida as their DC and inside linebacker coach 2023 through 2025, so a really good hire. Offensive in 2021 through 2022 FAU defensive coordinator, inside linebacker coach, 2020 USC's DC inside linebacker coach, Texas in 2017 through 2019 defensive coordinator, inside linebacker coach, Houston in 2015 through 2016, Utah State in 2013 through 14, FIU in 2011 through 2012, and UConn in 2005 through 2010, and then he just did inside linebacker coach 1999 through 2004 and 1996 through 98. He was at Penn inside linebacker. So a long line of being a DC and inside linebacker coach ever since 2005. So been doing it a long time, and that South Florida defense was pretty good last year.
All right. Player-wise, they lose quarterback Bubba Thompson. If you don't remember, Bubba Thompson was like a 27-year-old freshman. He was a former Major League Baseball player, but he is off to West Florida. Running back Kentrell Bullock out of eligibility. Wide receiver and friend of the show Devin Vosen out of eligibility. Wide receiver Jeremy Scott off to TCU. Tight end Trent Thomas to Tennessee. Tight end Breck Long to North Texas. Offensive lineman Jordan Davis to UCLA. Asher Harrell to Baylor. Braden Ramey is in the transfer portal. Malachi Preciado to Tulsa. Edge, moving over to the defensive side of things, Edge Tyler Thomas to Kentucky. Ed Smith IV to Tulane. Achilles Woods to LSU. Nathan Jennings to Florida International. RJ Moss Jr. to Florida International, and Dominic Wiseman to Kentucky. Linebacker Blaine Myrick to Miami. Linebacker Dalton Hughes to Tulane. Safety Wesley Miller to FIU and Ty Goodwill to Cincinnati. And cornerback Nehemiah Chandler off to Florida State. Who are they bringing in? Tight end Everett Hunter, Nicholls State. Offensive lineman Kyrie Lee Jr. from LSU. Offensive line Shalik Hubbard from Monmouth. On the defensive line, Massey Lewis from McNeese. Andrew Hines from Eastern Kentucky. Linebacker Cedrion Langston from UL Monroe. Safety DJ Moore from Georgia Tech. And quarterback Jalen Mawson from Utah. Yeah. Major Applewhite, I think, usually gets the best out of his offense. Didn't a year ago. We'll see what they can do with year 2 with Bishop Davenport. Not super excited by the DC hire with Todd Orlando. Like as Bull fans 2K7 says, he was not good a year ago. He was the interim head coach for the bowl game. We saw that turned out for South Florida. I don't know, like, if I was Major Applewhite and, in what could be a make or break season, that'd be trusting Todd Orlando with my defense personally. I think it's going to be a better year for South Alabama just because I think the Sun Belt West is weaker than it was in 25. And they do return their quarterback and Bishop Davenport. And so in today's college football world, that's pretty big. But losing Bullock, losing Vosen, I just don't know if they're going to be able to take a step up and really compete for the Sun Belt West title or not.
And then losing those guys, they didn't really bring in a dude. They brought in lots of guys, but just I don't know. There's nothing that really oohed and awed of okay, that could be something. We'll see, just what it looks like. But let's move on to the Southern Miss Golden Eagles, 7-6 last season, 6 more wins than their 1-11 season in 2024. I would say a success for the Southern Miss, considering where they came from, but they probably should have been in the championship game. Wheels fell off there at the end of the season, but coaching changes. I don't know what to think about this Charles Huff guy. You hear the stories, and he's just, whatever pretty girl looks at him, and he's off. Maybe bad analogy here in college football, given all the Michigan stuff. Not really, who's I'm the belle of the ball here. He's just going every year now. Charles Huff out after one season at Southern Miss, but I think he really helped turn around that program from that 1-11 season. He's now the head coach at Memphis. Blake Anderson is he comes over instead of the OC. He is now the head coach. First season, didn't coach in 2024 as he was fired at Utah State. But before that was the head coach in 2021 through 2023. Then Arkansas State head coach in 2014 through 2020. Blake Anderson offenses, pretty exciting there. He brings in offensive coordinator Kyle Cephalo to be his OC there for his first season. He was the assistant, or he's going to be the assistant head coach and quarterbacks coach as well. He was the Cal wide receiver and passing game coordinator in 2025, 2021 through 2024. At Utah State as the wide receiver coach and passing game coordinator. And then at Arkansas State, 2013 through 15, nothing in 16. And then 2017 through 2020. So he's been with Blake Anderson since his time there at Arkansas State. I guess 2016 he was a graduate assistant at Maryland. And then out is Jason Seymour after one season. He becomes the defensive coordinator at Georgia Tech. So he brings in Joe Bolden as the defensive coordinator, linebacker coach for his first season. He was with the team last year, so he was promoted from the special teams coordinator Nichols position last year. Last year was his first year with the team. Prior to Southern Miss, he was the Tulsa Jackson special teams coordinator 2023 through 2024. In 2024, he also added the title of co-DC and running game coordinator. He was Nevada's special team coordinator, inside linebacker coach in 2022. In 2020 through 2021, Ohio State defensive quality control, USC in 2019 as a special team quality control analyst, and then Washington State grad assistant 2017 through 2018, and in 2016 Michigan and FAU grad assistant.
I think this gives Southern Miss some more stability. I don't think, if anyone thought that Charles Huff was going to be there very long, was probably,
I thought it was going to be more than a year.
Yeah, I agree. I thought it was going to be more than a year, but I didn't think it would be much more than 2 tops, maybe 3. But I do think Blake Anderson gives him some more stability. Obviously, he's familiar with the Sun Belt. He was there at Arkansas State for a long time before going over to Utah State. Great offensive guy. I think he's definitely going to have the offensive side of things figured out. The question will be, can they figure out things on the defensive side of the ball? And to your point earlier, I think Southern Miss fans, if you had told them before the season that they were going to go 7-6 and be in the hunt for the Sun Belt West title, they would have taken it all day, every day, right? But I think given how the season ended, they probably felt really, really disappointed because all Southern Miss had to do was win one of their last 3 games, and they would have won the Sun Belt West, and they couldn't do it. And so I think, before the season, the fans would have loved it, been happy. As the way the season played out, you can't help but think they had to feel a little bit of a disappointment because they really should have won the Sun Belt West in 2025. But nonetheless, remarkable turnaround, like you said. And I think Blake Anderson is a good move for them. Having said that, they lose a lot of players from that 2025 team. Starting quarterback Braylon Braxton out of eligibility. Wide receiver Tyshawn Chapman off to Memphis. Tight end Shane King to Arizona. And offensive lineman Hayes Creel off to East Carolina. Moving over to defense, where they lose a lot. You got edge, all conference, one of the best edge rushers in all of college football a year ago, Jamon Tapp off to Memphis. The same with Jabari Ishmael to Memphis. Edge Garrett Ponder to Baylor. Defensive lineman Mason Clinton to Florida. Defensive lineman Jaden McKinney and Chris Stokes to Memphis. Defensive tackle Brodarius Lewis out of eligibility. Their star linebackers, Chris Jones off to Florida State. Michael Montgomery follows the staff over to Memphis. Cornerbacks, you got Jonathan Penix to Troy. Josh Moten out of eligibility. Safeties, Ian Foster and Khalil Foster over to Memphis. Corey Myrick to Clemson. Dylan King and Amir Foster to Memphis. Who are they bringing in? Quarterback Ethan Hampton comes over from Illinois. Before that, he was at Northern Illinois. Running back Jamarius Wilder from Louisville. Brandon Hood from UMass. Wide receivers Caden Saunders from Penn State and Mario Saunders II from Illinois. Tight end Jeremiah Beck Jr. from Arkansas. On the offensive line, Toby Mealer from Louisiana Tech. Dejaquan Jackson from Liberty. Defensive line, Xavier McIver from East Carolina. Will Smith from North Texas. Jeffrey Rush from Ole Miss. Amari Wilson from Georgia Southern. Josh Johnson from Nicholls State. Linebacker Melvin Spriggs from Akron. Safeties, Kobe Albert, UConn. Jordan Pride, Texas A&M. Laquan Robinson, Kansas. Cornerbacks, Hiroshi Carr from Morgan State. Jonah Martinez from TCU. Jair Brown from UCF. And Champ Lewis from Tulsa. The quarterback situation does concern me a little bit. Ethan Hampton, I didn't think was very good at North Illinois. Obviously, he goes to Illinois. He's the backup there and never really played. I don't know how, a Blake Anderson offense is usually quarterback friendly. They throw the ball around a lot. I just don't know that Ethan Hampton kind of fits the mold of what I would expect for a Blake Anderson quarterback. So it's kind of like it could be putting trying to put a square peg in a round hole situation, and that could hold them back in 2025. Obviously, they lose a ton on defense, but the Sun Belt West feels like the weaker division. But yeah, the quarterback probably concerns me the most for Southern Miss in 2025 or 2026.
Well, you talk about that West being down in a weak division, maybe a strong defense wills their self to the top, and that's Troy Trojans. 8-6 last season, 4 more wins in their 4-8 year in 2024. They had a conference championship appearance where they got shellacked. I guess they didn't get shellacked. I think the score was close, if I'm remembering right.
It was competitive for a while, and then JMU kind of like really took control.
Maybe till half. I can't remember exactly when.
Just of the game.
But Jared Parker comes back for his 3rd season, but they are going to make a change at offensive coordinator. And Sean Ragin out after 2 seasons. He's going to be at North Texas in some fashion. He's not on the staff website, but I know he's over at North Texas. They bring in Adam Austin for his first season. Boys, he's going to have his work cut out for him with as Justice will get to the guys leaving. Offense is going to be definitely rebuilding. But in 2024, 2025, he was the Tarleton State OC and Tarleton State quarterbacks coach 2021 through 2023. I'm kind of surprised that Tarleton State quarterback that was out there maybe didn't come over. Well, I mean, don't want to speculate as to maybe why he didn't, grades, whatever, maybe preventing him, but maybe he makes a change next year, depending on how many years of eligibility he has. I found this interesting. He actually did one spring game coaching gig at Missouri Southern State in February and then went on to Tarleton. So that was kind of just interesting. Like, oh, this guy's so great. Look at him at a spring game, get calls up. But he was at Garden City Community College in 2020, but no season as COVID. Eastern Kentucky offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach in 2019. And then he was Midwestern States quarterback coach 2011 through 2012, and then their OC 2013 through 2018. They bring back defensive coordinator Dante Wright for his third season and co-defensive coordinator Nathan Burton for his third season.
I really like the hire of Adam Austin. Tarleton State was one of the better offenses in the FCS in 2025. So I think this is a sneaky good hire by Troy. Like you said, their defense was lights out in 2025. The offense was left a lot to be desired. And I think Adam Austin can really help insert some juice into this Trojans offense. All right, player-wise, who are they losing? Running back Tay Meadows off to Auburn. Wide receiver Roman Mothershed to LSU. Trey Taylor's in the transfer portal. Wide receiver DJ Epps to West Virginia. Offensive lineman and outstanding freshman Paul Bowling is off to Florida State. On the defensive side of things, edge Treshawn Griffin to Middle Tennessee. Edge DJ Jackson Jr. to Oklahoma State. Edge Jamal Williams out of eligibility. Defensive tackle Luis Medina out of eligibility. Linebackers Jordan Stringer and Stephen Catledge out of eligibility. And cornerback Jaquez White is off to Virginia Tech. Who do they bring in? They bring in running back Jaheim Merriweather from Purdue. Wide receiver TJ Lott from Old Dominion. Offensive lineman Darian Rivers from NC State. Defensive side of the ball, starting with the defensive line, Kavion Henderson from Arkansas and Ty Clemens from Boston College. Linebacker Bryce Steele from Boston College. Cornerbacks Jonathan Penix from Southern Miss and Marcus Gurry Jr. from Tennessee. They're probably the team I would pick second to win for the Sun Belt West. Goose Crowder returns. His issues always help, man. Like I feel like he's a good quarterback, decent quarterback. I think he would do well in this Adam Austin offense. But man, the dude just can't stay healthy, man. And so I think that's going to be the big question for them is who's going to be the quarterback? Can they stay healthy? The backup whose name escapes me. He had games where he looked really good, and they had other games where like he looked lost out there. Again, maybe this Austin offense will help in that regard, help with the play calling, get things more into flow, etc. But yeah, I think I would pick Troy to be my number 2 team in the Sun Belt West.
So quarterback with Tucker Kilcrease, I think that you were thinking of.
Yes, yeah. He had games where he looked like really good, and then
let me
other
get this
games
straight.
like.
So you think?
I'd have Louisiana 1, Troy 2 in the West. The East, ODU 1, Marshall 2, JMU 3.
All right. I must have been lagging there. So sorry for any people listening there via podcasts. All right, so let's take a look at our last team here in the Sun Belt, and that is UL Monroe Warhawks, who were 3-9 last season, 2 less wins than their 5-7 season in 2024. Coaching changes. Their defensive coordinator, Ernest Hill, after 2 seasons, has been promoted to be an assistant head coach and cornerbacks coach. So Bryant Vinson, head coach in his 3rd season, now adds Troy Refet. Sorry, we're getting late into the night now. Troy Refet for his 1st season, but he's been with UL Monroe on in 2 different stints, but most recently 2024 he was the outside linebacker coach, 2025 inside linebacker coach and defensive run game coordinator. He was also at UL Monroe 2009 through 2014 as their defensive coordinator and cornerbacks coach. He was the defensive coordinator and cornerbacks coach at New Mexico in 2020 through 2023. And then at North Texas, he was the co-DC and safeties coach in 2016 before he was promoted to defensive coordinator and safeties coach in 2017 through 2019. Memphis's cornerbacks coach in 2015, and like I mentioned, UL Monroe defensive coordinator, quarterback coach 2009 through 2014. Bryant Vinson, he has, I think, been on their roster as being the OC or it being vacant, but after 2 seasons, he has hired Jesse Montelato to be in his 1st season. He was the head coach at Iowa Central Community College, JUCO, here in 2018 through 2025. He was the head coach at Ellsworth Community College, which is in Iowa, 2014 through 2017. And then the Upper Iowa University Peacocks. He was there in 2005 through 2013. Wide receiver coach 2005 and 6, offensive coordinator in 2007 and 8, and then he added quarterbacks with the offensive coordinator there in 2009 through 13.
Man, I don't see more wins really for UL Monroe in 2025. From a resources standpoint, they have probably the least amount of resources, definitely in the Sun Belt. Maybe in all of FBS football, but yeah, I don't know that things are going to improve much here for the Warhawks in 2026. Player wise, they lose running back Zach Palmer Smith out of eligibility, running back Braylon McReynolds off to UAB, and running back Deshaun Ford to Grambling State. Tight end Hunter Herring to Auburn. Moving over to the defensive side of things, you got defensive lineman Tay Woody to Texas State, Jerome Simmons to Oregon, and edge Cavante Wells is still in the transfer portal. Edge Billy Pullen is out of eligibility, and linebacker Cedrian Langston is off to conference rival South Alabama. Who are they bringing in? Quarterback Austin Carlisle from Houston, running back Don Chaney Jr. from Charlotte. That's interesting because he was not eligible at Charlotte last year.
Academically ineligible.
So not sure what he did, but he's going to be at UL Monroe here for the 2026 season. Running back Bryson Rowland from Arkansas Tech and Derek Jameson from Utah State. Wide receiver Parker Fulgham from Clemson. Wide receiver DeMarco Blanton from Arkansas State. Tight end Bryce Anderson from Memphis. Offensive lineman Sean Duggery from Memphis. The defensive side of the ball and the defensive line, they bring in edges Lakel McGowan from Memphis, C.J. Wilson Jr. from Butler. Cornerbacks Laurel Howling from Coastal Carolina and Armani Rue from Michigan State. And safety Taji Overton from Arkansas. I don't know, they look like the worst team in the Sun Belt West. I think they're better than Georgia State, so I don't think they're the worst team in the Sun Belt. But I don't see things really improving much for UL Monroe in 2026. But I don't think they get rid of Brian Vincent. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. They did just fire their head basketball coach. He was only there 1 year. He had a terrible year. I think they only won 2 games. One of them was against Old Dominion. But they did fire him after 1 year. So I don't know. Maybe they will let Brian Vincent go, but I just don't think they just don't have the money and the resources to really compete right now. I don't know if that's going to change anytime in the near future.
All right. Well, I mean, it's been a long episode with 13 teams to cover. I'm pretty sure I butchered the name of Jesse Montalto earlier, so sorry about that. I'm pretty sure I butchered Troy Refet as much, so sorry to the fans there at UL Monroe who will probably chastise me in the comments when it comes to I hate getting teams player and coaching names wrong because it's easy to look up, and I did not have the pronunciation of the Refet, but I'm sorry about that. But we are to the end of our time here. If you're watching us on YouTube, please be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. On X, give us a follow. If you're listening to us on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify, please be sure to subscribe and leave those 5-star ratings and review. They really help us out. And each week, I tell you, because I forget, because I went to public school, I don't know how all those algorithms work, but the 5-star ratings and reviews help. No show next week, March 16th. We're going to take the week off, but be sure to join us the following week. Monday, March 23rd, as we launch our 2026 Coaching Deep Dive Series, part 1 of 3. If you're interested in some of these new offensive systems, we've talked about all the coaching changes, but what does that mean like for the players? If you play college fantasy football, if you're a fan of the team, what does that look like? Who do they target in the red zone? Are they using a split backfield? Is there a workhorse back? Do they target the tight ends in the red zone? What do these offensive systems look like here in 2026? You're not going to want to miss this. If you're listening to us on YouTube, put in the comments, what are some, offenses or teams that you're interested in? There's been a coaching change. Like, hey, what does this mean? We will try, like I said, we got about 15 teams that we're going to cover, but we want to try to make sure if you're interested in a team, we want to be interactive too. We want to try to cover those teams too. If you're watching us on X, tell us in the comments who you want to. Reach out to us in DM. Like, hey, we want to hear about this. Come out, reach out to us. Maybe we'll put out a poll or something like, hey, who are you most interested between these, teams? So make sure we get those guys covered. Until the next time, we are the G5 Hive.